So when I thought about the question of the learning from the summer, something really resonated with me right away, and that was the idea of active listening. So it's something we started really in Beit Midrash and teaching texts, where we were listening to both the text and our partners. And that became something that in foundations class I recall, very sort of deeply listening to the second graders as they were reciting to us what they were thinking about the Night at the Movies problem. And then in Faye's class, just stepping back and sort of listening to what we were saying and when Faye was modeling teaching. And that's something that really struck me, especially in contrast to where I've come from, which was the legal field. And listening is important in the legal field, but reacting is equally as important, and thinking on your feet and being quick about it. Whereas this summer I've learned to listen and think and interpret and make a decision. Because, and what I've learned is that teaching is sort of like a means of constructing something. So every decision you make has ramifications for future decisions. So in order to construct a really healthy and vibrant teaching environment, the first part of that is that active listening and being able to then make decisions based on what you hear and what you listen to. So that really struck me as an important lesson from this summer. As to the question, I suppose that my question, and this is something that I'm fairly confident will be answered in due time, is really about sort of damage control and sort of crafting a line. Well, let me take a step back. In foundations class, we read The Child in the Curriculum, and in there, John Dewey references how one of the most important things in teaching is crafting a motivation, a legitimate and motivation from the child, and he contrasts that with sort of artificially constructed motivations that are that are crafted from the fear of or the avoidance of discipline or being singled out. So in one sense, I don't want to be a discipline. I don't want to be in a position where I am seen as some sort of disciplinarian where children are listening to me sort of for the wrong reasons. But on the other hand, I don't want to feel like becoming their friends either. I have to learn where to sort of draw that line is, and that's something I'm actually really experiencing now in teaching reading class, just in the practicum. Just over 2 weeks' time together, it's been interesting to see how the children's reactions to me have changed over those 2 weeks from a sort of respectfulness to now they're starting to feel like they're able to take more liberties even as the second week is coming. And sort of reacting to that is a challenge. So.
I was struck when you were talking about active listening and that in the role of that, or the role of the teacher, as opposed to in law, to some degree anyway, you have to listen and stop and think and interpret and make a decision, which I thought was a very fruitful way of seeing the teacher's stance, because it allows you to investigate what's happening with the child as well as interact and respond. And I was wondering if in that where you go from listening to interpretation, how you've experienced that movement, what's been hard or interesting about that for you?
Right. So I think I've had just a pretty limited experience in that so far, this idea of sort of assessing any situation, not just the students themselves and their work, but their reactions to my words or and I think that actually ties in a little bit to my question, how to sort of identify that quickly and how to react to it. I think it's difficult. It's something that I'm only, I'm going to learn, I imagine, but then I'm going to have to just constantly practice. and even in the reactions themselves that I'm making, I think that alters the dynamic as well. So, yeah.
I think it's impressive that you named it in that way, and I think that's already like far along.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm just in a, I think, embryonic way, just seeing some, I'm seeing some sort of ping pong ball kind of parallels between thinking about listening and thinking about teaching. And a couple of the associations that were coming to mind as you were speaking are, first of all, the fact that this work here is very much about making the practice of teaching visible. And the practice of listening, often on the kind of visibility plane, is just the practice of not talking, it looks like, from the outside, it can look like nothing. And it also occurs to me that often, when I say we, I actually don't mean most of the people in this room, but in the education field at large, so often there's a focus on the product of teaching. And often with listening, what we're really interested in is, well, like, what did you hear, so what you can say in response. I also have somewhat of a legal background, so I share that experience as well. And that the notion of just looking at the practice of listening itself, and then its role in teaching, it's just, I don't know, there's a parallel there that for me is very generative, but there's something very beautiful about the making visible and the deepening of our understanding of something that is, in the popular imagination, about not doing something.
Yeah.
I think that's why you use the phrase active listening.
Right.
It's an activity.